All right, what is going on, everybody? I am David Davis, owner and founder of All Veteran Disability Claims, and I want to do a quick mental health CMP preparation with you, or compensation and pension exam prep. Really quickly, I'm going to go through a quick disclaimer. So, I am not an accredited agent, I'm not a VSO, not a medical professional. I am not an agency that is recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs. At all, right? So who I am is a veteran who is a disabled veteran who's helped hundreds of other veterans through this process, thousands other veterans through this process, and I'm eager to do the same thing for you, right? So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the reason for this training right here is because you're getting prepared and you're getting ready for a compensation and pension exam. For mental health, right? Typically, it's going to be following the lines of PTSD. It could be major depressive disorder. It could be traumatic symptom disorder. Many different things. But understand that no matter what the actual condition, besides the actual mental health, they're going to fall in the same type of category. They're going to be rated under the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's a combat veteran or major depressive disorder based off of something else that's happened in the military, or even just pain or something like that. It's going to be rated on the same thing. The way that the VA, and I'll get into that portion. But anyway, understanding mental health claims is a complex and deeply personal topic. Experiences during service can leave lasting impact. Recognizing and addressing these issues is a step towards healing, right? So that said, understand that I understand when you file a claim for a VA disability claim and you know you've gone through the military, you've experienced and you've dealt with certain things, and when someone comes out and says that it's not service connected, or whatever, when you finally decide that you're going to step forward and do something or file a claim, someone comes back and says it's not service connected. And I know how deep that hurt can go, especially after you've had to dredge up all these things that you probably haven't talked about at all. Now you're having to talk to this doctor, and this doctor has nothing to do with your military career, wasn't there with you, probably didn't do it themselves, and now you get to let someone along those lines and that line of succession tell you that you are not service connected. I know that pain, right? I've been there, right? So with that said, I need you to jump out of that mindset. I know that I was there and it was dark for a while, and I felt like the VA was absolutely out to get me, and there was nothing I can do about it. The rater didn't care about me, the examiner didn't care about me, and I had whatever rating I was going to have, and that was it, right? While I was in that state, that was exactly it. That's all I had. At the time, I had 10%, and that's where I stayed, right? I don't want you to have that mindset. It's not going to be helpful for you. Throughout this entire process, I want you to take ownership of your claim. I want you to look at this claim as yours and no one else's, right? So if I look at the examiner and I say that the examiner or the VA or the rater or whoever, it's their fault that I don't have the rating that I'm supposed to have, then I can never have it, right? I can't do anything about those people, right? I can complain, I can, tell Congress, I can, call the White House line, I can do all those different things, but I can't change the fact that if I put all the onus on somebody else, I can't change that. I can't change what they do. I can't change their mind. I can't do all these different things. The only person I can do anything about is myself, right? So that's what I'm telling you, is I want you to focus on you and what you can do to change your circumstance. Now, I understand that I'm talking to people that have been through this process many times, and I know that I'm talking to somebody that might not have never gone through this process, whether it be their first CMP for mental health, whatever the situation is. So there's people that are going to be looking at this. But understand that you have the control of your own claim. And as long as you have that in your hands, then no one else can take that out of your hands, right? All right, so that's my philosophy. So let's go. All right, so understanding mental health claims. So mental health is complex, and we already talked about that. Let's move on. All right, so just jump into just preparation for your claim, first and foremost, right? So the first thing I have up here is that you need to take notes. When I'm saying take notes, that I'm talking about you take notes right now. Right? You already have some reading material that will sent you. start reading through that information. You start taking notes. Not saying that you need to write down whatever word you need to say. I'm saying that you need to summarize the information that you have so that you have an understanding of how you actually fit in this scenario, right? You saying that you just throw a word out there that I have suicidal ideations, it's not going to be beneficial. You saying I have disorientation of place and time, it's not real speak for a regular person, right? If you have a condition or you recognize that you fall in lines of some kind of anger issues or anxiety or something like that, then I want you to start putting yours together on how you would be able to explain that or to somebody else, right? So what that looks like is that your condition or the symptom, right? And with that symptom, how does that symptom affect you on the job? How does it affect you socially with your family and your friends? How does it affect your day-to-day living, right? So that's how you're putting together your summary. So if I were to ask you a question, or do you ever deal with depression? You're not going to say yes and leave it at that. You're going to say yes, here's how, right? I deal with depression, and this is how it affected me. This is who it's affecting. This is what it's caused. I'm on my third marriage. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, right? You want to be able to explain the situation. You're not going to give any one-word answers, right? If you have an answer, it's going to be longer than a one word or a couple of words, right? So next thing is you need to know your symptoms. I don't care if you're coming in here with medical documentation and someone else has diagnosed you with something, you need to know what they have in those notes, right? If you're going to the VA and someone in the VA diagnosed you with PTSD, then you should be looking at that information, right? We're not looking at that information because, we can't understand it completely because we're not medical professionals. We understand it on a different level. But when it comes down to it, you need to know that information because when you go into that C&P exam, you and that doctor are going to be the only ones there, right? So you need to be able to answer for yourself and based off of your symptoms and the things that you're dealing with. I will tell you that you do not need to embellish. There's a lot of information out there where you need to talk about this, you need to talk about that. I will say you're talking about your worst day. You're not talking about that very day, right? Always, right? So if I'm talking to you and everything is fine, then everything is fine. Let's say if I go into a doctor and I got a messed up shoulder, but I've been taking some Motrin and been working it out a little bit and now it's starting to feel better. That doesn't mean tomorrow my shoulder is not going to be completely messed up because of what I did today, right? So you do want to talk about your worst situations, not just what you're dealing with right now. I can be in the best marriage ever, right? That doesn't mean that I haven't already had 3 divorces. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you got to look at that. But you don't need to embellish and just add anything. Don't add anything that's not there. Know your medications. If you're on any kind of medications that the VA has put you on or someone has put you on, know what they are, know what the dosage is, know who prescribed them to you. And just to clear everything up, make sure that you have that information submitted with your claim and with you to that examination so that you can just hand it to the doc and you don't have to remember anything, right? So, but ultimately you want to be able to share how your symptoms are affecting you. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. All right. So just to break down a little bit, right? So a lot of times we go into these examinations. If you haven't gone in an examination before, you're speaking to, especially for mental health, you're speaking to a psychiatrist, something like that. Typically that individual, if you're paying through your insurance or something or whatever, that individual is there to treat you. That individual is there to make sure that you're better, that you're getting taken care of, that you're going from this position to that position or whatever. Normally that's the situation. During this examination, that is not the case, right? They are not there to treat you. They are there for fact-finding. They are there to answer some questions for the VA. They're there to find out if you have the diagnosis that you're saying that you have. They're there to find out if you have the symptoms that you say that you have. And they're there to find out what the levels those symptoms are, right? How are they affecting you in the job and socially, right? That's what their job is. So please don't go in there with the mindset that this individual is there to treat you, because they're not. They're not there to treat you. They're there to get information. And we tend to get upset when people don't want to hear our story, or they don't pay enough attention to our story and stuff like that. So I just put that out there for your own purpose to say, hey, they're not there to treat you. They're asking pointed questions, and sometimes there's going to be one-word questions and just trying to find out where you are with the situation. So that's where you need to, have your own information ready to go. Just also for your clarification, you don't know how long this appointment is going to be. You might say that it's going to be an hour, but in reality, it might be 15 minutes, could be 30 minutes, could be 2 hours, right? It just depends on the doc and their availability. Right? You don't know if they fell behind in their last 2 clients and now they're trying to catch up, right? So the main thing is that if you know your information, you know your summary, you don't have to search for that information. You already have it ready to go, ready to fire. And even if you'd had to take notes because of your memory or whatever the situation is, then now you still have that information with you and like, hey, no, I need to let you know about this, and this. And you go down your list. And I don't care anything about their time at that point, but you don't know when they're going to try and stop it. So you need to make sure that you give as much information as you can. And we'll get into that a little bit more afterwards. But 15 minutes, an hour, I've seen them both. I've been in both of them. I've been in an appointment that's been an hour long. I've been in them that's 15 minutes long. I've been in person. I've been to them online, right? So let's press on. All right, so to go along with the symptoms that we're going to get into in a little bit, there are also physical symptoms of anxiety and different things like that, where it can cause you to have physical sweating. You can incur heart rates, and all those different things can increase. And you want to be able to mention all those things to your examiner. All right, so how are mental health conditions broken down when it comes to the VA? Right, so it goes all the way from 0 to 100%. But the way it's broken down in the middle is it's 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100. Right, so rating breakdown for 10%. What they're saying is that you have a mental condition that is diagnosed, but the symptoms are mild and they do not disrupt your work or social activity. Recognize this portion. Right, this is going to be key in every single step. This is the 10%. Doesn't disrupt work or social activity. No need for ongoing medication. Right, 10%. Be honest with you, I've never seen anyone rated at 10% for mental health. It's either been 30, 50, 70, 100, or not rated. Next, I will tell you it's 30%. Right, so what they're saying is for the 30% rating, your occupational and social impairment is noted. You have an occasional decrease in work efficiency, intermediate inability to perform tasks. You have general functions. You generally function satisfactorily with normal routines and behaviors of self-care and conversation. Right, so you're doing all right. Right, you maintain. You might need some medication. Right. But for the most part, with that medication, everything is going well and you're able to continue on with some things. You have some decrease in work efficiency, right? Moving on to the 50% range is you have occupational and social impairment is present. Occupational and social impairment is present. You have reduced reliability. You have decrease of productivity, right? You're not doing very well at work. You're coming into work once or twice a month late, right? You have your social impairment is both present, right? You have decreased productivity, right? And then we go on to the 70% range. Right? In 70% range, you have occupational social impairment is observed, right? So you're to doc and they're observing these different things. They're listening to these different things. You're documented at work on not taking care of tasks and not being able to keep up with stuff. You're on most of your areas where it comes to work, school, things like that are all kind of have an altered thinking pattern. Sometimes you could have mood fluctuations, compromised judgment, just strained family relationships, different things like that. It's on that 70% range, right? So then when you're moving down this list, all of them are still based off of the social and occupational impairment or work impairment. But when you're at the 100% range, it's total social dysfunction. It's total occupational impairment, right? Meaning that you might stay at a job for a very little bit of time and you're fired. Your social impairment, you don't have very many friends. As a matter of fact, you don't have any friends anymore, right? You don't want to be around you because of the mental issues that you have going on, right? It's overblown, it's gone, right? So these different things are kind of the breakdown. Again, it's 0, 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100, right? And I didn't spend a whole lot of time on those because that's what we're going to do on the next slide, right? So next slide. So the color coordination is not accurate on the last page, but on this page, when you're looking at, of course it's cut off up here, but this is the 10% range up here, right? It's talking about the mental condition is diagnosed, symptoms are mild, but it's not really affecting you very much. You're not on medication, right? So that's the 10% range. This is going into where you do have that occupational social impairment due to mild transient symptoms. But what I'm pointing out here is this green color, right? So this is going to be a copy of a form that you'll also get. This is something that the LHI used to use, or now Optum Care used to use. I'm not sure if they still use it, but it's still beneficial for us, right? So in that green section is where you're dealing with the depressed mood, anxiety, suspiciousness, panic attacks, chronic sleep impairment, mild memory loss, different things like that. When you're looking at those different things, and what I like to see and what I like to say is when I'm looking at these different things, I'm looking at the fact that these are the things that people don't mind talking about, right? When I look at depressed mood, people don't mind talking about that. They don't mind talking about anxiety or suspiciousness, right? That's cool. You're suspicious of other people. It's kind of, 007 type thing, right? Vaguely mind talking about panic attacks. People have zero problem talking about chronic sleep and mild memory loss, right? But what I'm saying in that is that, like I said, this is that 10 to 30% range. If you spend all your time not minding talking about these things and talking about them, that's where you're going to be rated, right? 10%, 30%, right? When it comes to veterans in this process, we tend to fall between the 30 to 70% range. When it comes to this, you're probably more on the leaning towards the 50% range or whatnot. But when you're looking at this, like I said, people don't mind talking about this stuff. People do mind talking about this stuff, right? So the whole purpose of this is, one, to show you what they're looking for, but then two, to get you to a point to where you are uncomfortably vulnerable. Right? You don't mind being just a little bit uncomfortably vulnerable when it comes to it. Because if you're not used to talking about it, you're not talking about it because you're uncomfortable talking about it, right? It's not that other people don't want to listen or won't listen to your stuff. It's because you don't want to talk about, right? It brings up bad memories. It brings up different stuff. But understand this 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100 rating is based off of what you're willing to talk about. All right, not saying that you talk about something that's not there. You're talking about the things that are there. People that have suicidal ideation or have had suicidal ideation don't necessarily want to think about that, especially if they're coming out of it. Even people that are going through it don't always want to talk about it, right? But that's something that you need to be able to talk about. Look, doc, and they're going to ask you, it's a pointed question. Have you ever dealt with suicide or felt like dealt with suicidal ideation? Response, depending on if you're dealing with it, hey, I felt like it or thought about it before, I thought about it, right? I thought about what it would be like if I wasn't here. I thought about this, I thought about that, and it's not something that I'm proud of or whatever, but I was there. It was a dark time, right? But if you're not used to or you're not comfortable going into that setting, you've never even thought about going to that setting, you're definitely not going to go into that setting or that this doctor that you're seeing for the first time in this span of 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, right? So with that said, that's why it's important for you to start going through these things and developing your story, your summary right now, right? If that is the case, you've dealt with suicidal ideation, hey, read it, write it down or something and just it. But what I will tell you is that as you're going through these different symptoms, get yourself in a place to where you have someone that's there to take care of you, right? Someone cares about you and that's going to check on your well-being. This is not for the faint at heart. We don't talk about it for a reason, right? Not because we're tough and we're just going to suck it up. It's because we don't want to deal with these kind of emotions. So when you're dealing with these kind of emotions, you need to make sure that you're taken care of still, right? So one, if you have these things going on, make sure that you're talking to somebody, that you're getting the help that you need. If you're getting ready to go to your C&P exam and you've got to dredge up some different memories that you've never dredged up before, you need to make sure that you got someone close to you, maybe driving you there, and that you're not going right back to work after this stuff is C&P is over with, right? So I'm saying all that to say that you need to make sure that you're taken care of, right? It's not all about a rating. It's about you making sure that you got the support that you need, period. So you're going through these different things, get comfortable talking about whatever these things are. And if you have 15 minutes, if I gave you 15 minutes, and we need to talk about every single one of these things. You have every one of these symptoms going on. If that's the case, which one do you think you should spend most of your time talking about? If you spend most of your time talking about this, there's a very good chance you're not going to get to talking about this, right? If you spend, this is the other side that I hadn't talked about yet, but when it comes to something like PTSD is off of a stressor. So you go through some kind of event, some kind of circumstance in your life where maybe it was life-threatening, maybe you dealt with death in some kind of way and it was a bad situation, right? Those are also those conditions, those things that we haven't talked about and we don't talk about very often, but now we're in a position where we need to talk about them. Don't get so caught up in the fact that you need to talk about your situation that you forget to talk about your symptoms, right? Because if you're talking about your situation and you don't say anything about your symptoms, then you effectively got 0% or no rate, because this is all based off of symptoms and how it's affecting you. So what I tell people typically is that you want to spend about 10% on your stressor and the 90% on your symptoms and how it's affecting you, right? So don't go in thinking that this, like I told you, that this is a psychiatrist and they need to hear your story. They need to hear your story for reference, but for the most part, you've already added most of that evidence in there based off of your 0781 that you filed with your claim. Now it's time to, you're probably going to have to touch on that. They're going to ask you some questions about your military career, but then you need to, this is what I'm trying to get at, is that this shouldn't be necessarily the time that you realize that, oh man, I did deal with that. Oh wow, I did feel that right there. You should already know what you're dealing with, because you did some studying. I just in a different video, but I'm telling you that this is, along with other compensation and pensions exam, could be some of the most important exams that you're going to take in your life, right? And if I tell you that it's the most important exam that you'll ever take in your life, would you study for it, right? It's going to affect you for the rest of your life, financially, or being able to send your kids to college, or whatever the situation is. It can affect you and your family for the rest of your life. Would you study? The answer hopefully would be yes, right? So that's what we're doing. We're studying. All right. So you've told your story, and now you're on to your symptoms. The contrast, as you can see, there's two sides of this form. These are the symptoms on the left side, and these are how the ratings are broken down, right? But how the ratings are broken down is how it affects you socially and occupationally, right? Not just on the job, but socially. Not just socially, but occupationally, right? So if there's no occupational social impairment, then there's no rating. If there's no occupational social impairment, I don't care if you're way down here. If there's no occupational social impairment, there's no rating, right? Typically that wouldn't be the case, but so on. All right, so just to jump into a couple of these different things, so I'm not rambling on and making this a 2-hour video. Looking at the rain, those are things that typically people don't have a problem talking about. But regardless on what you're talking about, if I ask you, do you have anxiety? The answer is not yes, even if you do have anxiety, right? That's a one-word answer. I asked you a closed-ended question, but what you want to be able to do is you need to be able to summarize your story, right? If you're talking about anxiety, how does that anxiety affect you on the job, socially, with your kids, with your wife, with your coworkers? How has it affected you? Have you been written up because of the anxiety? Have you had to call out of work because of anxiety? What does your anxiety do, and what does it cause you happen in you, right? That's what you want to be able to talk about, not a yes or no type thing. Same thing with any other thing that's on here. You need to be able to talk about how it's affecting you on the job, how is it affecting you socially, okay? Impaired judgment. Do you have impaired judgment? Oh yeah, I got some impaired judgment. Do you have some grossly inappropriate behavior? If I asked you that question and you said yes, what does that actually mean? I don't know what that means in detail. A psychiatrist could probably give you a good mental health definition for it. But if I'm considering these different things, then I'm going to still, no matter what, I'm going to reflect it and make it not look like, but reflect it based off of how it affects me on the job and socially. All right. So difficulty sleeping. How does that affect you on the job? Well, because I have difficulty sleeping, I cannot wake up on time. I'm coming to work late, or while I'm at work, I can't focus because I'm so tired. I can't sleep at night. I'm constantly waking up from nightmares of seeing the things that I've seen. And now here I am. I'm getting written up at work. I can't get promoted because, I'm dealing with all these different things, and it's a constant, uphill battle. All right. I try and take medication to be the energy, take 5-hour energies and energy drinks and all these different things, and it's just not working. One, it's not working, but then two, it's causing other issues. And they gave me medication for mental health to be able to deal with this stuff, and now it's causing erectile dysfunction. All of these different things and how it's affecting you on your job. So I've gone through a number, just with talking about being tired. I've talked about a number of things and how it's affected being socially. You better believe erectile dysfunction is going to affect you socially with your spouse. Crankiness and being tired at work, yeah, it's going to affect you on the job. So all of those things are real. As you're going through here, just start creating your story or your summary of your story. Not mine, but yours, right? As you can see, there's some that are up here in this range that are also red, right? So you can have memory loss, names of close relatives, and own occupation, or your own name, right? That's huge. If you have memory loss of your own name, you're 100% range. But as you can see, memory loss also falls in the green. Memory loss, such as forgetting names, directions, and recent events. I thought there was another one there. All right, so where it can be all the way on the 100% range, it can also fall in the range, right? So, like I said, blue is 50%, yellow is the 70% range, right? If you are in the 70% range, you can be in the 70% range, but also have some things in the 100% range. I'm not saying that you have to read out this list and boom, this is all my things. Doc, I have difficulty adapting to stressful circumstances, inability to establish and maintain effective relationships, and I have suicidal ideation. And don't let me forget about, what you're talking about is your life, right? It was, for me, if I turned myself into this situation before I stopped working, I was struggling at work, right? I was struggling to certain things. I was struggling to get the job done. One task would take me, it seemed like, the entire day, which meant that, I couldn't get it done because I couldn't focus. I couldn't remember what I was told to do. I couldn't organize. I couldn't, all those things. And it was causing me to drop down into a deeper hole, right? So, I had a difficulty adapting to stressful circumstances. But, man, that was affecting me greatly. And that's not how I would have said it, right? That's not how a regular person says things, right? So you go to explain in your own situation, your own circumstance, how these things are affecting you, right? So that means you might need to dig. That means you might need to talk to your spouse or your girlfriend or your mom or your dad or your relatives or somebody that knew you prior to you going in the military or prior to you deploying or doing whatever it is that they knew you here. This thing happened, and now this is who you are, right? I was the life of the party. I had lots of friends. Now I can't stand to be around anybody. I was a Sunday school teacher, a minister in the church. Now I've fallen away from God. I sit here and look at pornography all day, right? Great contrast to who I was to who I am now. And I promise you, your loved ones can see it, right? They can see it. No matter how much we try and hide things, we try and cover it up, someone else can see it. So you want to kind of involve them in this situation to where you're talking to them about what they see, right? You can't really say what your husband's seen or what your wife's seen or whatever, but they can write a statement. It's called a buddy letter. They can add that to your claim. You can take it with you to your examination, but you have it, uploaded in the system to be filed as evidence. But all of those things are telling, difficulty understanding complex commands, impaired judgment, impaired abstract thinking, disturbance of motivation and mood. All of those things are, and you need to start developing your information on them. There's a difference, right? There's a difference in between normal response and abnormal response, right? Let's say I'm driving down the road and someone cuts me off. Normal response would be to be upset. Oh, that's messed up. Why do they do that? I'm going to honk my horn at them. You know what I'm saying? That's messed up. Why did they honk me off? I'll do that. I'm going to flick them off. I don't do that, but whatever. That's a normal response for a lot of people. I'm going to tailgate them to help them see that they cut me off. So now I'm going to ride 5 feet from the bumper, all the way down the road at 85 miles an hour, right? Next, let me see the next stage. Next stage is that I'm going to swerve around them and I'm going to try and cut right in front of them to cut them off to show them what they did to me, right? What's my next level response? Next level response is to pull in front of them and slam on my brakes. Next level response could be to stop in front of them and jump out your car and start banging on their window, or catch up to them at the next stoplight so that you can get in a fight with them. Next level response is pull out a weapon, and shoot at them because they let you off. Another level response would be to meet them at their doorstep so that you can fight them, beat them up, or do whatever you want to do to them. The issue is that all these different levels of response, some of them don't care if you have your kids in your car. Some of them don't care if your spouse is in the car. You're so enraged, you're upset that this person cut you off, and now you have to do something about it. They put your family in danger, so you're going to put your family in danger to show them that they shouldn't have did that, right? That is answering so many questions on this paper. Grossly inappropriate behavior, impaired abstract thinking, all of these different things. There's a lot of different things that are on here that scenario that a lot of people deal with. It just cross off this list all the way down to the 100% range. Persistent danger of hurting self and others, right? The whole point of this is to make sure that you drive home your understanding of who you are and what you're dealing with, right? Like I said, when we're talking about those things in yellow, red, and blue, they typically are the things you're not used to talking to. You don't want to talk about, right? Most adults don't want to talk about neglect of personal hygiene, right? But you need to be comfortable enough to tell this doc, hey, doc, look, sometimes I 1, 2, 3 days without bathing, and when someone says something, then I'll probably do something. But your take care of yourself has increased, So when you're dealing with all these different things, you need to be able to explain them to the doc and go on from there. Right, so we talked about this just a little bit. Anger versus rage. You need to understand the difference. Rage can be destructive and uncontrollable, right? You got kids in the car, but you can't stop yourself from arguing and cursing to be able to get to this person and cut you off. Whatever the situation is, you need to be able to explain these different things. There's situations to where the police might have had to be called, whether it be in your relationship or even in response to some kind of situation like that. Have you or arrest warrant or something like that because of your divorce, because of your anger issues or things that have changed over time? Are you on your third and fourth marriage? You know, this is all evidence to things that you're dealing with, right? So these are things that you need to be comfortable talking to the doc about. All right. So, like I told you already, when we're looking through this different stuff, you need to make sure that you have a support system. Right? We're here, but we're not always there. Right? We can't always be there. Right? We're like I said, a lot of us are veterans, and we're trying to take care of ourselves. But we recognize that, talking about these different things is going to cause and bring up and dredge up different responses to stuff. Make sure you have your support system, right? Make sure you have your spouse. Make sure you have your parent, somebody that can just watch out for you, like that, right? So our mission is to guide and assist veterans. We understand the challenges. We're not just a company, we're a community. Like I said, we'll be there as much as we possibly can, and with resources, and also just a phone call, whatever. Make sure when you're going to these types of appointments that you probably need to take the rest of the day, right? Just to get back to normal. I tell people don't. This should be a day where you take off. You're talking about stuff you probably haven't talked about in a while. So that said, I'm going to stop beating these dead horses. And I'm going to end this with, I'm David Davis, owner and founder of All Veteran Disability Claims. Please let me know if you have any questions. Reach back out to your coach. This is just the foundational portion of this. Read through these different things. Reach out to your coach so you can go over any questions that you might have. And hey, I'm on there if you need me. So, talk to you soon.